Hi everybody, thank you for joining me here again. If you haven't noticed, our world's going through some changes right now, and I thought it's about time that I address a little bit of this, and I don't want it to be the elephant in the room or the elephant in the video. If you're basing your opinions on what you're hearing in the news, you're probably feeling a little lower hope and hopefully not a higher level of anxiety, but this attacks your peace. And that's why you've decided to give me a moment so that I can bring encouragement to you and shed some light on it. And the times that we're in right now are not totally foreign to human history. I mean, periods like this have happened in the past, and let's face it, as Americans, we've been pretty blessed. There hasn't been things that have been happening on our land. And when we go through periods of unrest like this, it's difficult because we're not used to it. I thought I would run down for you the political situation that Jesus Christ was born into. Now, when I say born, I mean, of course, he's the eternal God, but he was born into a human body. We celebrate at Christmas. And just listen to some of these things that you may find a little parallel with what we live in now. He was born into a totalitarian one-world government. There was a corrupt ruler. There was a very corrupt Senate. Taxes were sky high. The moral climate of society was extremely low. The people were obsessed with food and entertainment. I don't know if you're really aware of that during the Roman Empire. When the government wanted to pull something corrupt and they didn't want the people really paying attention to what they were doing, the phrase that they used was, give them bread and circus. Now, what that means is, give them free food and provide some type of government-sponsored entertainment. This keeps the people laughing and sidetracked so that they aren't paying attention to what we're doing. So you can always remember that. They give the people bread and circus. And then lastly, followers of God were marginalized, harassed, persecuted, and some even killed. Now, at this point in history, in America, maybe we're not being killed on our soil, but there's a lot of persecution worldwide, and there are those who are giving their life worldwide. So this is the perfect time to reevaluate as a follower of God what the purpose of my life is, what the purpose of your life is. I may know exactly what it is, but I've drifted from it. Maybe you do know. God has made something very clear to you, what you're to be doing with your time, your effort. It's clear, but perhaps you've kind of drifted and you've lost focus. This is why I've begun in these talks and these videos in the beginning of the Bible. And what I want to build is a foundation for us to build a stable, fulfilling life in our pursuit of God. Sometimes it helps to go back to the beginning to see, and in this case, to see what was God doing? Why was he starting this? I've heard people say that he created us because he was lonely. Come on. First of all, it's the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. I'm sure there was a lot of partying going on. They're fine. But we can be a little short-sighted to think that there was nothing before us. And for some of you, that may seem like a crazy statement. Now, some of you have heard and maybe have a deep understanding of an idea called the gap theory, what happened between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2. I happen to lean that way presently, and in the future, I'll probably talk to you a little bit more about that. But to think that there was nothingness before us with an eternal God, something tells me there had to be something. And that's just a fun thought that I have. But I want us to just think about when God did what he did on the earth, he was beginning something. He had a purpose in mind. He put us here, as I mentioned in the last video, that we were created in his image, which could be translated, we were his imagers. We were supposed to rule and reign and live on the earth as if he were here with us. He wants to do life with us. We're to be a replication of him. And that's where I told you in the first 2,000 years of history, we had 3 epic fails. The sin in the garden, Genesis 6, where the sons of God created spiritual beings, took human women, married, and created a race of giants that plagued human history for centuries. And then the final was the Tower of Babel that happened. Those failures, it seems as we look at it, God made a decision. He made a decision that there was just no way that we could do this on our own. He was going to have to step in and help. And in saying that, and we're going to look at that transition in a moment, but God observed us for 2,000 years before he made a move. And if those of you who have a relationship with God and you walk with him, you know it just doesn't seem like he's in a hurry. It just doesn't seem like he's in a hurry. That waiting that sometimes we have to take part in, it does its perfect work. So God, over a 2,000-year period, is constantly giving us the opportunity to make a change as humans in our behavior, and we just couldn't overcome the dark influence that was always leading us, either driving us or deceiving us away from this relationship that we had with God the Father. So then, God's decision that he makes is he decides to enter into a covenant. And I want to direct your attention to the book of Genesis, the end of Genesis 11. And we pick up this story. The writer of Genesis starts to go through a genealogy. And toward the end of that genealogy, toward the end of Genesis 11, it mentions a man named Terah. It says in verse 27, this is the genealogy of Terah. Terah begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Haran begot Lot. So if you're familiar with the Bible, maybe you're familiar with Lot. This is the Lot that ends up in Sodom and Gomorrah. Haran died before his father Terah in his native land in the Ur of the Chaldees. Now, my understanding is Ur of the Chaldees, probably in the area of modern-day Kuwait. It's in that side of the Middle East. Abram and Nahor took wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Iscah. But Sarai was barren. She had no child. And Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, his son Abram's wife. They went out with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go to the land of Canaan. They came to Haran and dwelt there. So the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. So they took off and moved out. And when they got to Haran, which is probably in the neighborhood of modern-day Lebanon, Terah dies and the family stops. And now this family, there's a number of relatives here, probably some servants and some other people and some livestock. And they get to that point and everything stops and the father dies. Now what? Because they were on a path to go into Canaan, and they get to Haran and it stops. And it's interesting that it's called Haran. Maybe when he died, they named the place after his son Haran, who had passed away. So we get to chapter 12, and here's this family, and they're marooned now in Haran. Now the Lord had said to Abram, get out of your country. Now there's no backstory. There's no explaining to us whatsoever why Abram. Why does God come to him? Why does he choose him? What is it? It says now the Lord had said to him. There's something has taken place here. And then, it's always fun to kind of try to read between the lines, but sometimes you're told a Bible story and you have no idea what happened here. Well, God can do this in any way that he sees fit. He decides not to tell us the backstory. But I want to remind you, I just pointed out to you 3 epic fails in 2,000 years. We're struggling. We're not getting anywhere. There's a group of people. There's a lot of people here that are at stake. Their lives are at stake. They keep failing. Maybe there's a number of people, of God's people, they have no idea, why do we keep making these mistakes? We don't know what the general consensus is. I want to point this out to you. When a group of people are in a tough spot, God usually picks one to change it. One. And this is why it's so important that today, in the state of our nation, that you respond to what God's putting on your heart, because you don't know where it's going to lead and you don't know who it's going to benefit. It may be completely outside of you. And I want to remind you, in our culture, everything's about me. Everything's about likes and subscribers. I know now. I know what that feeling is, that pressure. Everything is about your comfort, your income. And when I'm saying that, it's just a general statement. There's a lot of pressure of really paying attention to, what am I going to get out of this? What am I going to get out of this? Where you come to a story like Abram, and here's a guy, he's just living his life. We don't know that much about him now. He's 75 years old, and God chooses him. It's important for you to always respond, because you don't know what God is going to do with your life. And just the interaction with God, if it's just for my family, if God begins to move in my life, there's just something inside. I'm starting to think about, where am I going? Why am I doing this? Maybe you have a deep connection with God, and all of a sudden you start thinking about, am I really happy doing what I'm doing here for a living? You can feel there's an emptiness. There's something missing. There are times when, as we become working age, it may involve marriage, and there's a job, and then there's an occupation, and then there's a salary. Then I start spending and increase my debt level to match what I'm making. And all of a sudden, you can get a few years into that, and you're almost locked into it. You have taken something on that you thought, this is it, this is my life. It's possible that you didn't even do that voluntarily. It just happened. Life just happened, and here you are. And now, I don't care what age you're at, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, like Abram. It doesn't matter. God starts to move in your heart. Something's not right. Well, what you could be just in the early stages of is the word transition. And right now, the word transition just has a capital T in all small letters. Maybe you're in a situation where involuntarily you were pitched into this situation. You lost your job. Maybe it's a bill, some kind of a big event that happened that you didn't see coming. It's a huge surprise, a suddenly. What are you going to do now? There's numbers of ways that you're following God, and all of a sudden he takes a hard left, and it hurts. It's painful. Something happens that you didn't see coming. You had no idea what was coming. Think about the disciples. The disciples are living their life. Peter and Andrew are brothers. James and John are brothers. The two sets of brothers are fishermen. They got a successful business. And here comes Jesus and says, leave your nets and follow me. Now, again, we don't get much of the backstory. How well did they know Jesus? How much had they heard about him? Had they been considering this? We're not told. But they left their business and their fathers and followed after him. In fact, they chucked it all. And they went that way for 3.5 years. Now, as they do this, they know Jesus is the Messiah. Well, a Jewish boy is taught Isaiah 9:6. Unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall rest upon his shoulders. Now, that's a stone skipping across the water 3 times. Child, son, ruler. So when they discover this is the Christ, they're expecting right then, here comes the government. It's all going to be set up. And then the day comes, they're in the Garden of Gethsemane, and Jesus is arrested. You want to know why did Peter have a sword and cut that guy's ear off? Because he's ready to set up the kingdom. He has no idea what's about to happen. And then in a few hours, they're standing in front of a cross, and the one that they know is the Son of God that they believed was going to overthrow the Roman government, he's hanging on a cross, suddenly. And Peter, shortly after there, says, I'm going fishing. And what he meant was, I'm not going fishing to relax. I'm going back to the fishing business. But the resurrected Jesus, if you know the story, meets him on the shore. And he knows, Peter knows this is him. He jumps out of the boat. He gets to him. Now, Peter has denied him 3 times. And Jesus fixes him a meal and says, if you love me, he lets Peter reinstate himself. 3 denials, and he tells him 3 times, do you love me? You know that I love you. And he said, feed my sheep. He came back after the suddenly to continue the purposes. And I just tell you that quick story. What is it that God's doing in your heart? Where is he moving? What is he asking of you? Is there a group of people that need to be reached by you? Is it somebody that's in your family? Is it somebody in your neighborhood, your community? Or has God set your sights a little higher, a little wider? Now's the time to hear his voice. Can you imagine what Abram is thinking? Listen to these words in Genesis 12. God says this to Abram, get out of your country, from your kindred, and from your father's house to a land that I'll show you. These people run in tribes, in clans. They stay together. If no other reason, 2 big ones pop up, safety and workers. I mean, this isn't like going down to the factory. No, we need a bunch of people here to hunt, to grow, to take care of the herds. There's work to be done. They stay together. And now God is asking you to leave? Verse 2, I'll make of you a great nation. What do you mean you're going to make a great nation of me? I have a family here and you want me to leave them. And he's 75 years old. He's telling him to completely start over. I'll bless you. I'll make your name great. You shall be a blessing. It's like he's saying, cash in your whole 401k, give it away and follow me. I'll bless those who bless you and curse him who curses you, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. I mean, these are heavy things. Just put yourself in these shoes. You know, if you're in the middle of a suddenly, like all of a sudden you're in the middle of a family situation or a financial reversal, something that's really heavy. These are big moments. That's what Abram is in the middle of. And then it says, verse 4, so Abram departed as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. Now, that may be a little bit of the curveball that Abram threw God. God said, leave all your relatives, and he took Lot with him. Maybe he's thinking, well, he's the hardest working and he's got the strongest back, so I need to take him. Who knows why he took Lot with him? Did he feel bad because Lot lost his father? I don't know. But he completely started over. And then it says, and Abram was 75 years old when he departed Haran. Verse 5, then Abram took Sarai his wife, Lot his brother's son, all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people whom they had acquired in Haran, and they departed to go to the land of Canaan. So they came to the land of Canaan. Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem, as far as the terebinth tree of Moreh, and the Canaanites were then in the land. And the Lord appeared to Abram. The Lord didn't appear to him until he obeyed him. Sometimes if you want more of God, and you feel like you're hitting a block, is it possible that he's asked something of you and you stalled? Numbers of reasons why that can happen. And I'm just asking a question. But I feel that we are on the verge of a huge move of God. And it's going to take some of us that are older obeying God. Some of you, and it doesn't even matter your numerical age, You've got years in with the Lord, and you've hit a point where there's not a stretching that's happening. Maybe you've gotten comfortable. Maybe you're just feeling like there needs to be more here. You need a challenge. You need something to really stretch you. God told Abraham, get out of here, and when you get where I want you to be, I'll let you know. He just went off into the mist to follow him. There's a faith element here. Abraham was a total man of faith. Are you hearing God? Do you need to take some time where you can start to listen? Now's the time to really develop a prayer life, being alone with God. Sometimes it's just being alone with him, stretching your ability to pray, spending time in the Word, meditating, and I'll throw something else in there, dreaming with God, the what ifs. What does the future hold? What is he wanting to do with you? Because remember, Genesis 1:28, God blessed them. He said, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth. Go. And there's times when we find safety in staying with what's familiar. I don't like my job, but at least I know what to expect every day. What if it's just time to get rid of that thing? And again, I don't want you to get excited about my words and do it, but I want you to think, is this what God's been doing in your own soul? Stretching you, poking you, prodding you, getting you to think outside the box. This is the time. This is the time. There are people that need what's in you. Some of you have a lot of the Word of God deposited in your soul. You just need to start asking God to fill you with power and for your view of yourself to match the way God views you so that you can launch out and take on this thing that's in front of you. There's so many people that are struggling today and are hurting and need this light that you're carrying in you. Recently I felt God challenged me with the same thing. I like to play softball, and God began putting a particular group of guys, a team, on my heart that I used to play with that I didn't play last year with them. So I've changed the team I'm going to play with, strictly because I felt like God was redirecting my attention, and I think there's kingdom work to do there. And what is it with you? Maybe it's a job. Who knows? But I know that God's speaking to us. I know that he's rearranging some things. He's putting some things in order. He's changing the way that he wants to do life with us. Whatever he's saying, I'm just asking you to respond. Respond to the prompting. Maybe you need one other wise person in your life that you could kind of talk this through with. I know someone who is going to make a big move from one country to the next, and they asked God for 7 confirming signs that they were to do this. And this was a huge move. And in a matter of weeks, they all came. Things from people. There's numbers of things that could happen. I had a time that I knew I was in a position of leadership, and I knew God wanted me to share some of that leadership, and I didn't want to do it. And so I told the Lord, if this one guy looks at me and says, it's okay, I'll know that it's okay. That'll be the sign, Lord, and I'll share this with him. And I thought at the time, well, that guy, he really doesn't listen to God too much, so I'm safe. And in the middle of a meeting, he looked at me and he said, Dave, it's okay. So whatever you need as a confirming thing to make a shift, to take that turn, God, you're feeling like God's taking a hard left, follow him. You have no idea the fulfillment that you find, and you have no idea the number of people that may have a completely changed outlook in life. You have no idea. So, Father, I ask that you would pour out your Spirit on these people. Somebody needs encouragement right now, Lord. And I ask that you'd manifest yourself in that room, wherever they are. Bring another person, bring a word, something out of your word, whatever it takes, Lord. An angel standing at the foot of their bed at 3 a.m., Lord, whatever it is, bring that encouragement. We are your people, Lord. Rearrange us. You do with us whatever you want. We submit to your lordship. And we take this on, Lord, knowing that you're safe, that you are a God of love, full of grace and mercy. You're forgiving, you're empowering, you protect, and you provide no matter where we go, because you take care of your righteous seed. We rest in that. Lord, speak to your people. Father, I thank you for what's going to happen. And I thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.